of this video series. This one's called Decomposers and the Compost Cycle. My name is Dr. Jamie, and I'm an educator at Metro. In the last video, we had discovered that there are many steps for our food to go through, from the farm to our table, and that natural resources are used in this food life cycle. Land, water, energy, and human labor. All these things, we don't want to waste these gifts from the earth. What can we do to help complete the cycle? We could turn it into the compost cycle, allowing the organic materials to break down and become rich dirt to help more plants grow. Now, there are a few different ways that you can do composting. One is called anaerobic digestion. And that pretty much means that it's going to sort of decompose without any oxygen. So what they'll do is they'll bring the compost to the factory. They put it into a cell with lots of bacteria. The bacteria are going to break down the food scraps, and they're going to release methane. Just like at the landfill, they can burn that methane to create electricity. What's left over at the end of the process is some really good dirt that can go back into the farms to be able to grow more food. Another option is large-scale composting in piles. This is actually a photo from the North Plains Recology site. The compost will come in and be added to these piles. And as it decomposes, it starts heating up, which helps it break down even faster. So what you're seeing there is not really a smell. It's actually steam from this very hot dirt. Again, here they are using science and technology to be able to compost safely. When I had visited this site, I was really worried, what if it smelled? But it didn't. They used tubing to be able to draw down any odors so that it didn't end up hurting the people around it or the environment. The third option is one that you can do at your home, and that's home composting. That's using a small scale to take whatever scraps you have left over and then turn it back into that really good dirt. So what I'm going to talk about today is worm composting. We're going to work with these amazing worms that are able to break down food scraps, the parts that I don't eat. Now, to create a worm bin, we have to create a really good habitat or home for them to live in. You don't want them roaming free in your home. Now, you all know there are 4 things you need to have a good habitat. We know from the second video that food is one item necessary for habitat. What are the other 3? Let's pause the video for a moment and write those down. Did you remember what the other 3 are? So they need shelter, they need water, they need food, and they need air. All of these things are going to be provided in that worm bin. Now, when we feed our worms, we want to keep them healthy. So we have our own worm diet plan. It's a ratio of 2 parts brown to 1 part green. Brown items could be leaves, could be shredded newspaper, or even straw. Brown parts will help provide carbon for these animals. The green are those food scraps that we're done using, like eggshells or my coffee grounds or that apple core. All of these things can be part of that green or the nitrogen part of their diet. It's amazing that these organisms are all part of helping recycle carbon and nitrogen elements into our environment. Now, there are some no-nos that we don't put in our bin, like meats or cheeses or breads. While they are organic, they also stink when they rot. And if I want to have this worm bin in my home, I don't want a stinky worm bin. Now, if you have compost pickup from a garbage hauler, you can put those bones and breads in there, just not in a home bin. I also don't want to give them items that they're just not going to eat, like metals or plastics. So who are my compost critters? They're the decomposers. They're a group of organisms that could be big or small, but they all have one thing in common. They help break down organic material. Now, when I was in school and studied how everything fits together in an energy pyramid, we usually started with the plants at the bottom, all the way up to the top predators. I was always confused, why don't we talk about the ones we don't necessarily see? Those decomposers. They are an essential part of the energy pyramid, even though they may be too small to see. So I like to see it as more as a food web or nutrient cycle, where all of them, the producers, the consumers, the secondary consumers, are all connected with decomposers. They are all part of the system. So how do you set up this type of nutrient cycle in your home? One option is to create an outdoor compost bin. There's lots of different styles that you can add in your food scraps and add in leaves or grass to start creating that cycle. But what if you don't have a backyard like me? There's another option for that, and that's a worm bin. These can be small or big, whatever size fits the area that you want to use it in. So it's amazing. These worms turn food scraps into castings, which is the scientific word for worm poop, dirt with lots of nutrients. So would you like to meet my compost critters? Let's take a quick look at my worm bin before I fully introduce them. In the worm bin, the most common one you'll see are the red wiggler worms. They're a little bit smaller than earthworms you see outside, but they are amazing at eating food scraps. They can eat half their body weight in a day. You also will see some small worms called white worms. They are about the size of a piece of hair. We also have some beetles in our worm bin. They could be a sow bug or some really small bugs called springtails. Now, if you have a really good habitat, you'll start being able to see red worm eggs or cocoons. These are small orange balls, and inside them can be 2 to 5 baby worms. I'm always excited when I find them in my bin because I know that I have a really good habitat. The worms are happy, and they're also helping me with the compost cycle. If you are interested, I'm going to give you a worm challenge. Can you figure out how to tell the head from the tail of a red wiggler worm? In the next video, I have some shots of the worms and critters in my worm bin, and I'd like you to do some observations and see what differences you see. Write down your observations and see if you can find up to 5 to 6 different ways you can tell the head from the tail of a red wiggler worm. After watching these 3 videos, you now know where your garbage goes after it leaves your home and how we have to be very thoughtful about how we protect people and the environment around landfills. You can also name the natural resources, these gifts from the earth that are part of a food life cycle. You know the difference between food scraps and food waste, and have picked out some eco actions that you already do to help reduce food waste, and some that you and your family can try. You're also able to explain how decomposers are connected and very important in a food web. And you've met the compost critters in my home worm bin that help me recycle my food scraps. I am very grateful to have spent this time with you learning about waste management and the compost cycle. If you want to learn more about waste reduction or are interested in building your own compost bin, please visit our website. I hope you have a wonderful day.